Welcome to another episode of Racial Unrest in America. Hopefully tonight we answer most of your questions about this topic and we move on to another one next week. But there really will never be an end to the topic and discussion of the racial unrest and the justice we are seeking for all people of all marginalized societies. I'm Melanie Keenan, and this is Truth Talk. My co-host, Markus Floyd, is unable to join us today as he is detained in work. However, I am joined with me today, some returning panelists, Bill Coffman, Jacqueline Keenan, Brandy Hunt, Bonnie Traylor, and Mary Lewis. So far, over the past month, we've discussed a numerous amount of information. The ripple effect, how the murder of George Floyd has opened the nation to unrest, protesting, rioting, and much needed discussions. It's caused changes in our political and in our policing policies. We also discussed how COVID-19 and all the societal changes plays a part in being able to speak up and have open discussions, making sure that people are now available, they're not out working, they're able to look for themselves, they're not just taking in what the media is telling them or what someone is telling them themselves or hearsay, but they're doing their own research. They're looking at the facts themselves. How COVID-19 plays in partnership to our reaction to not only the George Floyd murder, but to a lot of the things that are systemic in this society. We also talked about how progressive change for one marginalized part of society often means that there's a lack of freedom or the taking away of a freedom of another part. Is there really a change that can benefit all of society and not just one and hinder the others? Also, history tells us that we cannot just erase the history that we don't appreciate. There's a lot of times that everyone wants to take down the statues. They want to change the history books. We want to rewrite history to what we know is right and wholesome and godly. But you can't do that because then we're at risk of repeating history. And then we talked about these hard topics, and I welcome the panel as I go over these hard topics to tell me anything that they have that they want to just update us with. Hard topics like the Jim Crow laws, qualified immunity, the Montgomery bus boycott, and no-knock warrants. This panel, the floor is open if you would like to talk about any of those hard topics briefly.
Well, I know we talked about no-knock warrants last time a little bit, but I would really love to hear our Bill Coffman's opinion on that. Maybe you could explain what you know about no-knock warrants from a law enforcement perspective.
Yeah, I'd already gone. I teach the Bible study at night. I've been doing it for years on Wednesday nights, and so I'd already left when you talked about this. So real quickly, I would just say this: in all my years of being a law enforcement officer, there's been almost none. In fact, I don't even remember one, but I'm sure I was on a couple. It's hard to get nighttime warrants because you don't get nighttime warrants unless you ask for it and the judge has to sign off for it. You don't get a no-knock warrant unless you ask the judge and get it signed off. You can get a warrant from 7 in the morning till 10 in the evening and all that kind of stuff. Just that's part of the deal when I get an arrest warrant. But if you get anything in addition to that, you have to give all the reasons why. A lot of judges are very uncomfortable giving additional things on warrants, including nighttime warrants. So I've actually been at places where somebody's got an arrest warrant at 2 in the morning and we can't take them to jail because it's not in the right time frame. So that has happened. They're not that common in that sense. It's not like just a blanket thing. They're given and asked for when there's going to be fear of violence, fear of the person says, and they say it, people do it, and they actually do it. If you come into my house, if the cops show up here, I'm going to kill them. And you have to have a few people with evidence of that thing. They have weapons, not just say it, but they have, we have evidence that they have weapons. They're going to use them, and we don't want to knock because they're going to shoot through the door as soon as we do. That's the reason for it. Now, I'm not going to tell you that everything works perfect in this world, because it does not. Nowhere in this planet is everything the way it's supposed to be. Just not the way it is. And it won't be until Jesus returns. But I don't want to get rid of the ability to have them for that reason. Now, I also want them restricted, like I want a lot of things restricted. Most people that think like me, law enforcement officers that think like me, which is the majority of my belief, don't want to trample on anybody's rights. So there's this balance you have to find, because it's a tough thing to do. It really is. Because when you are going after somebody to arrest, depends on who you're arresting, but you may be arresting somebody from MS-13. You might be doing it. We have, and I've done it. They will kill you.
And I think, Bill, that, like you said, in a perfect world, that is great for no-knock warrants. But as we discussed in previous shows, that is such a horrific thing when it goes wrong.
Right.
When it's right, it's good. It's safety for the officers. It's safety for those who have to put themselves in harm's way. But when it goes wrong, when the judge signs, 5 warrants in 12 minutes, he didn't look over the information to even know what the cases were about. When he does something like that, and everything is not up to par, everything is not sifted out.
Those would be individuals I would say that need to be looked into, because I've never personally asked for a warrant that was signed without.
So it's just about, do we want things on the book, laws on the book, police tactics on the book that will allow that if it goes wrong, people get murdered? Like, why do we, that's the problem with no-knock warrants that we talked about, is when it goes wrong, it really goes wrong and someone's life gets killed, whether it's the cop or the person that they're trying to serve the warrant. Somebody's going down and it's not good. So, getting that off the books, finding a way to where you can do it safely, and if it goes wrong, it doesn't kill someone. That would be the perfect world, right?
I would just finish it with this. I agree with what you're saying. When it goes wrong, it's bad. But if you don't allow for them, and then you go knock on a door and the person shoots and you shoot back, you may kill people inside there. When people get arrested, and people that don't want to get arrested are willing to fight, what's the best way to handle it? Because there's no perfect way. There isn't. You're going to kill some people. Which one's the least amount of deaths? That's, I think, the question. It isn't like, one's going to be perfect and one's not. I don't believe that. Not in this world. I don't think there's
I agree with that. But I still think that we have to have a better way than either way. It's about the warrant. It's about making sure the warrants are right, that they're for the right people, for the right
reasons. There, 100%.
And the right addresses. That's what it's about. It's not even about that. It's about getting it right the first time. But we also talked about last week, where did God go? Does praying and taking God out of schools and the Pledge of Allegiance and the 10 Commandments at the courtroom, did that open a society of discourse? And I was really glad to hear our panelists, discuss that. No, it didn't. You still had prayer in schools on voluntary basis. You still invited to do things for people that has to do with prayer and God. And so it's not taken off campuses. It's just not mandated or made to mandate. I want to talk about this. I want to dedicate tonight's show, before we go to break, to John Lewis. John Lewis was an amazing man who served in the House of Representatives in the Congressional 5th District in Georgia. And he gave his whole life, his whole entire life, to fighting for equality for people. He started with the Montgomery bus. He was a part of the sit-ins. He gave freedom and he gave his life over to it. Some of the things that he said in his life was he never thought about the cost. He knew that the cost could be his life to stand up for freedom, to stand up for desegregation, but he accepted that cost. And he was one man that was right in the thick of it with civil rights, but then he also went into the politics, and he was thought and revered by both Democrat and Republican, but he was also revered by whites, Caucasians, blacks, and he was revered by all people of any race and any culture. And how a man can go to bring equality for this nation the way he did over his lifetime is amazing. So we dedicate this show to John Lewis. And now we must take a break.
I just wanted to say I agree, and that's what I think that we're doing here is trying to get people to think like John Lewis.
Yes, exactly. When we come back, what solutions do we have going forward?
We are now reaching our second-year anniversary on our inspirational, educational, and entertainment programming. As part of our journey, we are so grateful to announce that our programs are now available to watch live in real time on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Periscope. A big appreciation to all our followers, viewers, supporters, and to those who are cheering for our success. Thank you very much for your patronage. Social media shows network's 2-year anniversary, and reaching 100 episodes celebration. As part of our appreciation, we are giving away $100 to a lucky winner. No purchase necessary. Go to socialmediashows.com for more details.
Welcome back to Truth Talk. The question I bring to you is, can we act for justice without needing a crisis to react from? The case in point comes from Freddie Gray versus George Floyd. Freddie Gray, as most of you know, was another Black man murdered in the back of a police van en route. Now, there was no charges there was charges, but then there was no prosecution of the officers because there wasn't a video. There wasn't enough evidence to show that the police actually caused the injuries to Freddie Gray. But the Baltimore State's attorney said this: it wasn't a loss in bringing the charges against the officers or bringing this to the community's awareness because, and she quotes, and this is off of CNN, she quotes, because now officers are mandated to seatbelt all prisoners. They are mandated now to call a medic when requested. And colleagues are now responsible for informing folks that someone else crossed the line. My question is, with Freddie Gray, why were we satisfied with that? Why, as a community, as a public, were we satisfied with just saying prisoners should be seatbelted? Shouldn't they be seatbelted anyway? I mean, we get tickets for not wearing a seatbelt, but they don't have to seatbelt prisoners. Saying that if they need medical care, now they have to inform a medic. Shouldn't they automatically have done that? Saying if a colleague crosses a line of force, shouldn't they have already been mandated for that? So why did it take George Floyd before we got another uprising? Why, when Freddie Gray was murdered, I believe he was, why did we settle for those 3 points of improvement? Because it was an improvement in my eyes. But we settled down. There was riots for Freddie Gray. There was outrage for Freddie Gray, but it settled down when this comment was done. Everybody said, oh, okay, great, you made changes. And here we are, George Floyd. Why? Why didn't we stick the course as a community and say in peace, not in unrest, in peace? Let's continue the conversation. Let's make some of the changes that we're going to see have been made today. Well, panelists, I'm going to open the floor to you. Why do we wait for unrest to unrest?
I think that, and I'm not proud to admit that I don't remember the situation when Freddie Gray was murdered. But I know that with George Floyd's murder, that I sincerely believe that COVID-19 has an effect on that, because when this has happened before, when we know this has happened before, and we've sort of been desensitized to it, unfortunately. But when George Floyd was murdered, there wasn't really anything, and it's terrible to say this, but there wasn't really anything else for us to focus on. You know, we couldn't get right back to our job. We couldn't get back to worrying about our bills. We couldn't get back to soccer practice and baseball practice and recitals, you know, because life had kind of stopped. And so when George Floyd was murdered, what else can we talk about besides COVID-19? Mm-hmm. And I think that really opened the door to an actual discussion versus these comments of, oh, well, we took care of that. You know, it's okay now. It's a longer discussion because unfortunately we don't have any other distractions in our life right now.
Yeah, I agree. This show would not be on had it not been for COVID, because we now have the time to do it. Like Brandy has often said, I'd be on a bus, train, automobile every time this week if it wasn't for COVID. You know, Jacqueline would be traveling. Bonnie would be out working at the church and preparing for services and things there. You know, we might be out with our kids doing activities and school activities. And so I totally agree with that. And it looks like the whole panel does. They're all shaking their head. But this is life, right? This is our life now. And it goes beyond political sides, but beyond Republican or Democrat or who you want for president, who you don't want for president. This is about everyday life in Americans, in aspect of COVID-19 as well as this. I don't think you can do one without the other. And that's why we are going to start talking about the COVID-19 health of America starting next week. But are there real solutions? Let me ask you that. These organizations, are there just programs that benefit one society over another? Can we just join an already organized group? I think there's danger in that. I want to know what you guys think. To just join an already organized group without doing our background check, because every group can sound good if they want to. And if we don't do the background check to find out what the founders are, or we might not know the founding was good, but it got hijacked by some radicals. We need to know that. So what is your point of views? Can the already made organizations be the only answer?
I don't think the only answer. You have to be careful because the scripture says everybody believes the story until they hear the other side. And that's 3,000-year-old wisdom. So I think it's dangerous to fall into any group. I don't care what the group is. I think it's dangerous to jump in and both feet and say, look, whatever my group says is right. And I brought up the Buffalo Springfield song from the 70s or 60s. It said people are in the streets protesting, mostly saying hooray for our side, not listening to the other side. Right. And I think that's dangerous. I think that's what we're doing today as a society, and I don't think it's good. Now, that doesn't mean that the organization that you might want to be involved with isn't good for you and good for betterment. I'm just saying be careful jumping into any group and saying, this is my identity. Other than Jesus himself, I don't want to be identified with any single group of people, period.
I agree with that, and I would add that as a person of peace and as a disciple, I can also go into any situation as a person of peace. I can go to a Black Lives Matter rally or protest as a person of peace, and I can pray. I can, look at situations. If someone is abusing a peace officer, I can step in and say, hey man, or if there's violence, I can say, hey man, we can't counter violence with violence. We've got to stop. And at the same time, I can go, support our law enforcement. It's a tough job and it's really difficult right now. I've heard that people are just exhausted, and I have some acquaintances who are law enforcement family members, and they're really suffering. They have no voice at all. So I think, that's the other side of that coin. You don't have to put your name on the dotted line of membership in an organization other than I'm with the Lord here. I'm with God.
I agree. Someone asked me, do I associate myself with, and they named an organization. And I said, no, I don't associate with any organization. I associate with the Word of God. I am a follower of Jesus Christ. And like you said, Bonnie, we can go into any organization and be part of it, but bring Jesus into it. Mm-hmm. But I do want to talk about, and you guys might find this funny, and you might find this something that angers you, but I'm going to do it. I want to look at a couple of organizations that's out there. And I'm not going to tell you if it's good or not. I think you need to do your homework, but I'm going to give you some quotes. And it's going to show both sides, how one organization can be positive and negative, because we're not doing our homework. And if you settle on one area that they talk about, but you don't know the other area that they talk about, we're in danger. And I think it's our responsibility to shed light on this with some people watching today, that we can't just go by what other people say or what the motto is for an organization, that we all need to do our homework. And so I want to bring to light some of those today. When we come back from a short commercial break, we're going to talk about Black Lives Matter, Color of Change, Black Panthers, the ACLU, and the Knights Party. The only thing is you're not going to know what quote is coming from where until later. All right? So we're going to play guess the club, all right? When we come back, short break.
Second year on our informational and entertainment programming. As part of our, we are so grateful to announce that our programs are now available to watch live in real time on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Periscope. A big appreciation to all our followers, viewers, supporters, and to those who are cheering for our success. Thank you very much for your patronage. For 2 years we have produced over 25 shows. and joined by passionate collaborators, individuals, and organizations. Social media shows network's 2-year anniversary, and 100 episode celebration, and $100 giveaway. No purchase necessary. Go to socialmediashows.com for more details.
John is an employee at one of the most famous firms in the city of New York, so his job is very hectic, and he realized that it is necessary for him to go and finally take a vacation. But he went on a vacation without planning out the details, and wasn't able to truly enjoy where he went because he had to think about so many things that he didn't plan for. Instead of enjoying his time away from work, he came back with more stress that he was not able to take full advantage of his vacation. But this year, a coworker suggested him to try World Ventures this time to make his vacationing more enjoyable and less stressful. They do not require you to plan anything outside of your transportation, which is also available at discounted rates. Your stay, your transport, and many meals are planned by the club. John liked the idea very much. He tries World Ventures, and his experience with the club was amazing, as he made many friends there with whom he had a great time. John recommends that everyone should try this club, as they are the best in business. See how the VIP-vacation-club.com can give you the right experience without all the hassle. Enjoy the VIP experience that only World Ventures.
Welcome back. And it's time to play Name That Organization. So you who are listening via all the many sites that we are live streaming, comment if you think you know the organization. During the break, Markus, Floyd, our co-host for the show, said, that's right, Melanie, that we do need to know the history and more about the organizations that we are following. Can we always know everything? No. Are the now organizers different than the founding organizers? A lot of times. So we have to go by both. But here's a quote. Every day we commit to healing ourselves and each other and to co-creating alongside comrades, allies, and a culture where each person feels seen, heard, and supported. Is that a good club? Is that a good organization that does that?
You just
Sounds good.
Good. All right, what organization? Black Lives Matter, Color of Change, Black Panthers, ACLU, the Knights Party, or George Soros?
Is that the Black Lives Matter?
Yes, to Mary. Black Lives Matter. 1 point to Mary. I'm gonna keep track. 1 point to Mary. All right. Let me ask you this. We help people respond effectively to injustice in the world around us. As a national online force driven by 1.7 million members, we move decision makers in corporations and governments to create a more humane and less hostile world for Black people in America.
NAACP.
ACLU.
It's one that you, what, Jacqueline?
Color of Change.
Color of Change. That is an organization I did not know about until doing some research. And I will tell you, they are doing a lot at the core of America in the corporations and the government. So I urge you guys to look up Color of Change and see for yourself if that's something you want to get behind. We're talking about today things that we can do, parts of the solution. So we're going to go over some organizations today. All right, how about this one? Black Lives Matter. Does it really care about saving or improving Black lives? Look at the wave of violence that took dozens of Black lives out, including 3 children, over the Independence weekend? Where were the Black Lives Matter's leader? Where was the outcry from Black Lives Matter about Black on Black crime? The group's mission statement proves that the entire agenda is political. Who would say that? First of all, do you agree with that or disagree with that?
Disagree.
I disagree with that.
Anyone else? I agree. I'm kind of like, wait a minute. Why isn't Black Lives Matter getting in an uproar over all the killings in Chicago and Detroit and all those places? Why don't they speak up against Black on Black crime? I'm kind of curious about that. Anyone else? No one else thinks that?
No. I think a lot of people have said it, but you get shut down now. This is canceled. So culture. So if you say it, you will be canceled right now.
You will be, but I do question that. Like, if you're for it, why don't you say it? But who do you think said this?
The Knights Party.
You're right, the Knights Party. The Knights Party is a white supremacist organization, but they have really good comments every day. They talk about what's going on in America. If you don't know that they're white supremacists and that they just want to completely rid America of anybody that's not Caucasian from like pure Caucasian, then you might get caught up in this because they make some good points. Just saying. So you got to know your group, all right? You got to know your group. If you're a part of
Melanie, that's a scripture that says everything sounds good until you hear an opposing view. You always need to listen to somebody else. Always.
Exactly. You need to do your due diligence and you need to know, because I'll tell you what, I was on that website and I just was like, oh, that's a good point. Oh, that's a different topic. And then it's like, well, wait a minute. They're doing it to pull people in. And that's what a lot of these organizations will do. They want to pull you in. They want to pull your funding that you're going to donate to them and your time and your energy. So, and if you're listening and I mentioned any of these and you're offended, please don't be. I really am just trying to bring a light, but what you believe, you believe. And I pray for God to deal with that. Let me do this one more thing. Hold on a minute. Where is it? Okay. This foundation pours $220 million into racial equality push. $150 million went to one group and 70 to another, different places. But this organization gave $220 million towards racial equality. Who did it?
George Soros.
George Soros. But guess what? 120 million went for Black-led racial justice groups, but 70 million went for the criminal justice to fight the racial justice. So he's putting money in both pockets so they can fight against each other. He's fueling the fire is what he does.
He's kind of famous for that.
Yes, but people know, oh, he gave so much money to the racial justice for Black people. Great, Black people are gonna go to it. Oh, but he gave all this money for grants for criminal justice. Well, now the police wanna go to that. But if you don't know he's doing both sides at the same time, you don't really understand that he's fueling the fire of the injustice and the unrest in America. So, that was fun. I don't think you guys enjoyed it. Did you guys enjoy it?
Are we taking a break right now?
You've got every one of them wrong.
We're gonna get ready for a break in 3 more minutes.
Okay, I have the question about why don't Black Lives Matter show up at Black on Black crime?
Thank you.
I saw their response on their page, so I pulled it up so I could read it verbatim. Black Lives Matter isn't just about the loss of life, which is always terrible. It's about the lack of consequences when Black lives are taken at the hands of the police. So that's why they continue to, that's why they don't show up for every loss of life, because their mission is mainly when Black lives are taken by the hands of the police.
Okay. And, I have that because the manifesto, Black Lives Matter actually has a manifesto. And the manifesto, it was actually started after Trayvon Martin was killed by George Zimmerman. That's how Black Lives Matter got originated. And it was to do a movement against the brutality and murders of Black Americans by police of excessive use of force. And by not only police, but anyone that uses excessive use of force. They would want to build and nurture communities.
Zimmerman wasn't law enforcement.
No, he was not. That was the case of the was that Florida law.
Stand your ground.
Stand your ground. Yes, Zimmerman was that case. So the way Black Lives Matter originated is something honorable. It's good. It came out of a hurtful place, and people got together and said, let's do this. But where is it going now? See, that's the thing. Everybody's like, oh, Black Lives Matter is a bad group. Well, now you have all these radicals that come say they're Black Lives Matter, you know? But I can have someone on this show and they can go on a tangent that I don't agree with. I can't take it back. Everyone listening heard it, but I don't endorse it. I will have to come out and not endorse it. But say that I'm an organization as large as the ACLU or Black Lives Matter or Color of Change. I can't speak against everybody that doesn't endorse the origination, that doesn't endorse the core mission. It's impossible to do that. You have this guy, oh my goodness. He's from Louisville, Kentucky, Chanel Helm. He's a co-founder of Black Lives Matter out of Louisville, not the full organization, just the Louisville office. And he did this outrageous thing that white people have to pay Black people. Things like this. If you own property and you have no descendants, you have to give it to a Black or brown family. You have to give up your property to a Black or brown family. If you inherit property, you have to give that property away to a Black or brown family. Now, people read this, it says you have to read, all white people must re-budget your monthly finances so you can donate to Black funds to purchase land for them. Now, this is what people are saying Black Lives Matter is, because this is out there, but this is not the core group. It's not the originating group of Black Lives Matter, and it gives them a bad name. So we have to go back to what's it originating, who is talking, and what are we hearing? There's so much out there that it's just giving everybody a bad name. So you have to do your homework, because what sounds good on one ear isn't good on the other ear. You got the Black Panthers. We gotta go to break in a minute, but the Black Panthers. I grew up thinking they were a tyrant. They were just a gang. But did you know that they were responsible for the lunch programs in school, the reduced lunch programs? They were doing things politically to change the community for low-income people. And the only reason it stopped is that the FBI did a counterintelligence program, and where they went in, and their sole goal was to keep the Black Panthers from becoming a political organization. Sole goal. Why? Why was that even happening back in 1969? It says the FBI declared the Black Panthers to be an organization and an enemy of the United States government. And so they were one of the greatest threats to national internal security. And they worked to weaken the Panthers by exploiting rivalries between Black nationalist groups. Who knows about that? That they were actually a good group. Do your homework.
Those things. Yeah.
Do your homework. Okay. When we come back, we're gonna talk about other changes that are happening that are good. Changes that are really helping change the way we see and experience equality. When we come back. Thank you.
We are now reaching our 2nd year anniversary on our inspirational, educational, and entertainment programming. As part of our journey, we are so grateful to announce that our programs are now available to watch live in real time on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Periscope. A big appreciation to all our followers, viewers, supporters, and to those who are cheering for our success. Thank you very much for your patronage. Social Media Shows Network's 2-year anniversary, and reaching 100 episodes celebration. As part of our appreciation, we are giving away $100 to a lucky winner. No purchase necessary. Go to social media.
Are you ready to hear about the most amazing competition coming your way? It's the Gifts of Talent virtual competition where you can dance, sing, act, do comedy, all in the comfort of your own home. And a portion of the proceeds goes to feeding the youth. You have a chance to win some amazing prizes. Have fun!
To enter, go to whalerscreation.us, or, for more details, go to socialmediashows.com and hishopnation.com. Or follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to get updates, and to vote for your favorite talent.
Welcome back to Truth Talk. Well, we had some fun looking at organizations, but we do want to talk about real solutions, what change is looking like. But before we do that, I want to give the mic over to Mary to have a comment.
I was really just thinking about your comment regarding the Black Panther movement and how, in a lot of ways, they're remembered as sort of a Black vigilante group in my memory. And it just brought to mind that the outliers within the BLM movement, by committing acts of violence, they could just as easily become detractors from the overall goal of the BLM. And so I think that if wherever you stand on this issue, just I think that it's important to take the path of nonviolence, because otherwise that becomes the focus and people will just kind of stop listening.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's what's happened, is people are stopping to listen to these organizations and stop funding them because of the outliers that are destroying them. Jacqueline, you're awfully quiet today, so I hope you start talking, you and everyone else. J-Dip, thank you for saying hello. He is online listening. So J-Dip, hello, J-Dip. You're welcome to ask any questions you might have. And also Stephanie, thank you. She said it's very noteworthy information about the Black Panthers, that their initial goal was to help the community. I understand that we're having some technical difficulties with the centering. Please bear with me. But you can still hear us okay. So just listen. If you can't see us correctly, just listen. Audible is great. Close your eyes and listen to us. So some of the changes that's going on. I love this change. It's out of Boston. It's called the Reform, Shift, and Build Act. And this is from the state senators. They approved this act. And this was as of July 14th of this year. So it says this, that it takes a strong stance against excessive force policies by banning chokeholds and the use of tear gas on protesters. So they heard all the outcry about what's going on in abusing the protesters that are there in peace. And they said no more chokeholds and tear gas. The bill also requires all officers to use de-escalation tactics, and they mandate officers that if they witness a colleague with excessive force, they mandate those officers to report them and intervene. So it's not okay anymore for them to see an officer use excessive force and then sit back. Those officers that are in there, they will also be accountable for not saying something, not intervening and stopping it. I think that's very important. They also are dealing with the qualified immunity, saying that they want to take away the imbalance of it. that it overprotects the police officers. And when there's not reasonable use of force, it should not be allowed to be invoked. So these are great things happening in Boston. We do appreciate that. But if it's not happening in your city, in your state, how can you get a bill like the Reform, Shift, and Build Act in your city, in your district? I say we take this act. I'm going to have all this up on my website within the next few days so you can know exactly what I'm talking about. And take this information to your city council members. Take this information to your legislation and say, listen, we want this in our city. We want the police to have these bans on them in our city. And let this not just be Boston, but let it be all over the country. Any comments on that?
Yeah, sure. I'll comment. I think it's absolutely amazing that, there are multiple areas in America where they have changed policies and they have created a lot of positive change. That is really amazing. But speaking for Los Angeles County, we've tried to contact the mayor. We've tried to phone in on council meetings, emailing. Personally, I've done the same thing, trying to say, hey, let's not use tear gas on protesters. Let's change some things that we're allowing the police officers to do. But, in an instance, maybe a couple of weeks ago, we did that. The mayor came back on a live on Twitter. Actually, he did a live, and he negated that. He said, well, we don't use bullets, rubber bullets on protesters. We've never tear gassed protesters. So it's a little bit difficult with Los Angeles County is when you have video proof and you're trying to contact the correct people and do it in a very civil manner, and they come and deny things that are video proof. So it's been really difficult for Los Angeles County to really make those needed changes.
Bonnie, I'm gonna go to you. I know that you attend city council meetings and things that are online. Can you share with us how we can get involved with LA County, Los Angeles, California, specifically? Because I know that you and Jacqueline both do that, but it's not about them denying it. There's proof. There's video proof of things that go on, but it's about bringing this to their forefront, the changes we want. We want a Reform, Shift, and Build Act in Los Angeles County. We want it in Chicago. We want it in Florida. We want it in Oklahoma. We want it everywhere. So how does someone get into Los Angeles County and get to bring this up?
Well, I live in a suburb that has its own city council. So I know that with ours, and I'm assuming LA City is the same, if you go to their website, they're right now having their council meetings online. And so there's a link that you can go to. In our case, you have to fill out a form that gives your name and the topic that you want to bring up. You're allowed 3 minutes to talk, to make comments. And so I would suggest, first of all, if you're just getting involved, I would just say, go on and watch. Because my daughter especially has been doing that. I think she's been on the last 4 city council meetings, and already she can tell that many of them, their mentality is so stuck in concrete, literally, that there's not going to be really anything that we can say to change their mind. So in those cases, I think the next election is where we need to make our voice heard. And maybe we need to talk to some younger people who are more aware of the imbalances and really take a look at things. And I've been really encouraged by, in our city, we have now some young people who have organized together, and there's a number of different Instagram accounts now where you can go on and if there's a protest or if there's a local issue or whatever, you can bring it up, and they have some suggestions for how we can handle that. And they've dealt with local businesses. They've dealt with local injustices. They've put out, okay, so here's some Black owned businesses that you can support. And I thought, that's a significant thing, right? Like, I mean, disagree with me if you don't think that that's right. But I really think that if someone's out there hustling and doing a good job, then, yeah, I'm going to support them.
Yeah.
And so, that's an easy win. And it's been really good for the community, not just, with respect to racial issues, but we had some businesses who were broken into. And so they said, hey, go support these businesses. And so we went to go support the business. And one of them was a Thai restaurant. You could tell the families all, it's a little tiny restaurant. There was a line all the way out the door to support them. And they were so, they said, God bless you. And so it's a good thing to get involved in your community. And it's not hard.
And on that note, we have to take another commercial break. I want to just remind everybody that we will have all of these links and information up on the website, www.truthtohear.org. We'll put that in somewhere so you can remember that as well. Mm-hmm. But first, commercial break, and we'll talk more solutions.
Are you ready to hear about the most amazing competition coming your way? It's the Gifts of Talent virtual competition where you can dance, sing, act, do comedy, all in the comfort of your own home. And a portion of the proceeds goes to feeding the youth. You have a chance to win some amazing prizes. Have fun!
To enter, go to whalerscreation.us, or, for more details, go to socialmediashows.com and hishopnation.com. Or follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to get updates, and to vote for your favorite talent.
We've reached the age of live streaming on social media shows. We present our show programmings, which demonstrate inspirations to any viewers around the globe,
with over 500,000 reached to over 54 countries.
Our programming are very relatively entertaining and empowering. And now here is the Let's Talk World. Let's Talk World, hosted by young, witty, and fearless leader of social media shows, Maria Pureza. This programming is all about featuring individuals in their field of interest. We showcase every
Welcome back to the final segment of this episode of Truth Talk, where we are talking about the changes that are already existing and what we can do going forward to continue the fight against injustice for all people, not just Black people, but for all marginalized societies. I want to talk about HR 7120. This is from the 116th Congress second session, dated June 8th, 2020. I find this intriguing on many parts. For one, some of the changes, I won't go through all of it. Look it up. It's HR 7120. It's called the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2020. It says it's to hold law enforcement accountable for misconduct in courts to improve transparency through data collection and reform police training and policies. Sounds good. Now, going back to what you were saying, Jacqueline, that deny, nothing's happening here. This act, in order to make an act about something, it means it exists, right? So one of these things are ending racial and religious profiling act. So if they're putting a reform to end it, that means what? They've trained to religiously profile people. So you can't deny it. It's in the act that they're reforming it. They want to put an end to it. So that means it has to be happening. Here's another one: to establish a national police misconduct registry about the use of force. I love that. So, you know, the police, they don't keep data. I did not realize this. There's no data in the law enforcement that says badge number 2252, name Officer John Gates. If there's an Officer John Gates, I made it up. It has nothing to do with him. That he goes from station to station to station and has excessive use of force on his thing. There's nothing following that. When it happens, it's over, it's done. In one station, he might get reprimanded, he might get desk duty or whatever, but if he switches to another, it does not follow him. This act, establishment of National Police Misconduct Registry, will make it where there's a registry. If a police officer is found to have use of force allegations, and it's been founded, they will have to be on this registry. So people will know this officer, he's not a good one. All right. I think that's integral. We have registries for everything, you know, that's wrong in society. You registered yourself for everything that you do criminally. It's good that now they have this registry going on. They also have data collection for the practices, police enforcement of trust and integrity. When a police officer does not act in trust of the community with integrity of the oath, there's going to be a federal data collection for that too. Holding police accountable in courts, ruling in independent investigations. Police will not investigate police. So this is a good thing. Look up, it's like 45 pages long, unless it was 75, but somewhere around there. HR 7120. It also has a ban for no-knock warrants on drug cases. And it also makes police accountable to wear their body cam at all times. Not that they can turn it on and turn it off, at all times. So this is a good thing that came out. It's actually called George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2020. I want to talk about this. I know we're running a little bit over 7, but I want to talk about this. Affirmative action. Good thing or bad thing? Talking about putting our beliefs for justice to a vote here in 2020 in California. They're going to have California Proposition 16 to repeal Proposition 209 Affirmative Action Amendment. So what this is about is 209, Proposition 209 was voted in November 5th, 1996. And that said, you can no longer do any hiring or anything based on race, sex, or creed. You know what I mean? No more. No affirmative action. That's pretty much what it said. You cannot hire people because you don't have a Latino, because you don't have a Black person. It doesn't matter. You hire who you want to hire. Proposition 16, which is going to be voted on, says this, that race, in light of all that's going on in our country, race does matter, gender does matter. So it's putting it back into action, saying, yes, you have to hire equally. You have to treat people equally. It's saying, you know what, we try not to look at race and gender, ethnicity. It's not working. The marginalized people are getting beat down and left out. So we're going to put it back on the books so that people get a fair trade. What say you guys?
I think it's it's really interesting because I mean, it's good at heart, good intentions, trying to say, there's a lot of people who are hiring with a very big bias. And we're trying to say, you know what, you need to have at least one of each or however to just take away all the bias. But I mean, at the same time, this affirmative action, I mean, people have been hiring Black tokens just to do it anyways. Like that was my hire. I was hired because I was a Black person. So it doesn't, I don't really see much of that changing the way hiring works, because you're just saying, okay, it's okay to hire the token person that you've been doing since forever, so it's not really changing. In my opinion, it doesn't really change much of what's going on.
Mary?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Jacqueline, but I do think that there is value in having affirmative action addressed, because race and ethnicity do matter in a lot of ways. I think that the best way that we can actually make affirmative action a positive thing and something that really is meaningful is going to take a lot more than just passage of a bill. I think that that's going to have to come from, number one, the community. And I know I said that before, but it really does. But also just sort of the unraveling of federal law, because federal law supersedes state laws in a lot of ways. And federal law, unfortunately, has a lot of implicit racism in why rules and laws were established in a certain way. And I think that that really has to be reconciled. And as a community, we have to work on our own inherent biases. So I think that it's really going to take at least those two methods of looking at it. And having affirmative action on the books could be a good thing, but it's, like Jacqueline said, it's not going to really solve anything.
Yeah. Brandy, I know you wanted to talk on this.
Oh, Brandy, go.
Here's my alternative question. Why can't it matter? Like, why should it not have to matter that I say I'm Black or white or whatever the case may be? I think one of the mental things that we have to come to as a society is that my win doesn't have to be your loss, whoever the my in the story is. The Black Lives Matter movement win doesn't mean that anybody that's not Black doesn't win. Or if some other law was passed, for police, that doesn't mean that people who aren't police aren't going to win. So that's how we have to come to a common understanding that, and I think Bill had mentioned they take their lives into consideration as far as being police. We want to go home with our life. Well, we want to go home with our life too. So I think something happened in the meeting back in the day where, okay, the police get to go home with their life, but so anybody that has to go down in order for that to happen, it's okay. And so that conversation has to come back and say, okay, how can we all go home with money, with jobs, with our life, with our health? When we get on health next week, I have a few things that I'll say about that. But I think the conversation as far as equal rights and things like that, and should it matter that I'm Black? We didn't choose. I didn't raise my hand in heaven or wherever we were before we got here and say, hey, I want to be blah 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 when I get there. Did y'all? Do you remember that conversation? If you did, you don't remember, right? So we didn't choose these bodies or these lives that we're in, but yet every day people are persecuted just for who they are and the color of their skin.
That is an excellent point. I love that point. I think it's much needed to be said. We have to wrap up this topic this week, but we're going to continue the conversation in weeks to come as we also integrate it with the COVID-19, the financial, the social, and the health of our nation. But I want to just repeat, how can we be part of the solution? Go to your city council meetings. Join organizations once you've vetted it, once you know it's a fit for you, and that it's not, we really want to be nonviolent as much as possible. join discussions, create your own discussion group, keep it going, keep fighting. When you see something that works, like out of Boston, and get it initiated in your city. There are things out there, there are laws and legislation being written that is working. And because it's not in your community doesn't mean it can't be. What works, bring it home, bring it to your community, start your own organization. Local opportunities, like Mary was saying, you know, it starts with us. It starts with us changing us and bringing it to Brandy. And what everybody on the panel has been saying for the last 4 weeks is that we have to change us and our responses. And then that will change the people next to us. Because the one thing I do know, while we're being part of the solution as a Christian, we cannot lose the testimony of the Lord. We can't say that we're going to be part of a solution that puts down people, that hurts people, that divides people. Now, sometimes truth does divide. And sometimes Jesus, well, he overturned a table or two against the government. And sometimes we might have to do that. But our core value has to be love, peace, and change for all equally. Let's not lose our witness trying to change a society. Thank you for joining us tonight. We look forward to bringing you the new topic of conversation next week, COVID-19, the financial, social, and mental health of our nation. Thank you so much. I also want to remind everyone that you can go to www.coffman.org